Hello everyone and welcome back to Cinematography Tips. So, today's video I'm going to be going over the basic window configuration of Final Cut Pro. So, once you open up Final Cut Pro, it might look something like this. Now, I do just want to start by saying that Final Cut Pro, I'm doing this video in the default window setup. So if you do have different windows, then that's probably why it's going to look a little bit different if you have a different arrangement. You can set your custom arrangements under the Windows tab here and show in Workspace, and you can actually create different workspaces. So for example, if I was to do color and effects, it does change it around and bring up some other windows. I will be showing you how to open these other windows without changing around your whole workspace, but I do just want to point that out before getting into it. So, on the default workspace, we start over here with what I'm going to be calling our browser window. This is where you can see your already created libraries, and then as you go into them, your events, and further down, your projects. So, as you can see, once we get into here, we have our projects. This was some fireworks I shot on my DJI Mavic 2. So I'm going to be using this as the example here. So once you get this here, and you've chosen your library, event, and project, this is the media window here where you can see your projects and then the imported media, whether that's music. This is audio. The audio was actually deleted off of the hard drive, so that's why it's red. And then your videos, and if you did have photos, they would show up here as well. And these are organized by date, so that's kind of nice as well. Now you can't always hide certain things and show certain things and have it organized to your liking. Like I said, there are different ways to organize it. That is up to you by clicking these different buttons here, creating different sizes, times, things like that. There is also a search bar up here, which allows you to search by title. For example, if I wanted to see just this one, I could type in DJI underscore, DJI underscore, and then it's going to show me the ones that start with DJI, and you saw it filtered out the song called My Town, Yo Town. So, that's kind of the media window here. Now, I do want to mention before moving on to the next windows is once you've gotten your event chosen, you can actually switch tabs over here and view. In this button here is your photos from iPhoto, GarageBand songs, music, and then sound effects if you do have any of these saved. So again, music, these are just the downloaded songs I have on here. Sound effects, there are a bunch of them that come pre-installed with Final Cut, which is really nice because it can actually be very helpful if you're trying to do a video and you need a sound effect that's pretty generic. Instead of searching around on the internet, you could have one in Final Cut, which would be really nice to use here because you can see it does work by just clicking play, which is really nice. And then again, you can take these and drag them down onto your timeline, which brings me to our next main window here as we're going to move down to what is called the timeline. This is where the majority of your time will be spent in assembling and editing and cutting up the videos and photos. This is where everything happens, where you can see you scrub along. These are the videos. If you wanted to cut certain parts of the video, this is where you would come to do that, and you can move these around to different places. Again, I will be doing more in-depth videos on what you can do in the timeline and things like that. I do want to mention, though, you can open up your index, which allows you to see better information about some of your clips. So if you select them, you can see the name, their position, where they start on the timeline, and if you did want to select here, and then you can get, like I said, better information. You can give notes if you want to see just video, audio, or titles. It can help you find certain things if you're working on a very large project much quicker. You can also tag certain clips and stuff like that with keys, keyframes, things like that. Again, I will be going in more in-depth into all of these in other videos. And then you do have roles here, which are the colors where you can enable and disable big chunks of the video all together. Very nice. So that is the main timeline. Over here, we do have our effects window and our transitions window. Both of those are closed by default and can be turned on and off by clicking on them right over here. These here are just settings for the timeline, which again, I will be going into more depth at a later time. So this main window here is our preview window where we can see what is on the timeline, what's going on. So if you stop and press play, you can see the video starts playing right in here. Very nice. Again, you do have some commands here that I'll be talking about in a later video. And then up here, this view button, this is where you get to see a lot of your other windows. For example, video scopes is what you might use for color correction. This is another way to get, when I originally started the video with the going up to window and saying color correction in the workspaces, that was another way to get to it. And as you can see when I play this, the video scopes go along with the colors that is happening here. And this is a very good example actually with the explosion of colors in the fireworks. You can see the graphs jumping up. And again, getting into color correction is way down the road, but I did want to mention that that is how you get to it. And you can actually organize these different charts, the vector scopes, lumigraphs, RGB, really whatever you'd want if you wanted the histogram instead. And again, these are all active with the video, which is really nice. So you can see them all start jumping up and down. Very nice. So for now, we'll keep those closed. That's the main preview window. Again, there's a lot of other windows in here that you can open up. Again, this is just the default windows though. So finally, we have our inspector window over here. This is where you will see a lot of your effects. Color correction can be done in here in the tabs, and then also information on the clips of video, audio, and photo that you're using. So when it's set to this one here, that is your main default. That's where you see your pretty much everything about the video. And then if you were to put effects onto it, so if I wanted to put a, let's say, a 360 sharpen effect onto this video here. Oops, we're going to get a little bit slow here maybe because it's going to try and render that. But you can see the 360 sharpen showed up right here. I'm going to turn that off just so it's not trying to render. But here you get your intensity and your amount. And again, this varies on your effect that you apply. But that's where this shows up. And you can see that before doing that, we did have, some other things here. Your transform, your crop, your distortion, stabilizing, rolling shutter, a lot of just settings for the video that come with each clip you put onto the timeline. So that's very nice. And if you wanted to see, for example, a title clip, this one is a, let me zoom in here on the timeline. This is a 360 scale title. So this actually gives us orientation, X, Y, and Z for the title. Your transformation again, your blend mode, all of that. So again, these options up here do change based off what you have selected. So you can see I got 2 extra ones here. For example, this title, this is where you set your text here, your text type, your font, size, alignment, all of that. Basic text editing stuff is right in this window here. This is a very important window here that you'll be using a lot, almost for every clip, title, audio that you put in. You'll most likely do something in this clip, depending on the video you're doing. So going back to just a typical video, if we switch to the next tab, this is our color correction area. And again, this is the kind of basic color correction, I will say it like that, where we have just your color board, so you can do exposure, so you can see you can bring up the light a little bit, bring in a little bit more of the darks, and a little bit more of the light, and then what you can do is kind of go from there. And then if you wanted more in-depth, again, that's when you would bring out the scopes and do better, more in-depth color correction, because again, this was just on the spot. So I mean, you can see it brought up the whites a little bit there, and again, that was just on the fly, but that was exposure. We do have saturation. I guess it would probably be better if we had some color. It looks like a little bit of color here. It's hard with the fireworks here as this example, but there's a little bit of blue and stuff in there. So bringing up the saturation, you can see the red and the oranges in there, or bringing it down to a grayscale. That's done in here as well, and that's the second click over. So finally, this last one here is just going to be your information about the clip that you have selected in the timeline. And I'm not sure if I mentioned that before. Everything that I've shown you in this inspector window up at the top here is based off the clip you have selected, not the clip that you have your timeline marker in your playhead. So if I had this clip selected, technically I'm still viewing this clip, but I'm going to be editing everything on this one. That's very important to remember. Make sure you know which clip you've selected and you're editing the right one. So again, this is your resolution you shot in, the name of the file, the last modified, the role. If you have other roles, like I could give it a title role, which changes it purple to match the titles if I wanted. And again, that's more for if you have a very large project to stay organized. You can give it audio roles, your start and end time, basically how long it is, its location in Finder, which you can easily reveal in Finder, which I think is very nice. So, and that's just kind of your file information. So that is all shown up by clicking this button here, which you do need to make sure you have selected to see that window. This button here is your timeline. So if you're just importing media and sound, you might want to close your timeline to have a little bit more space. And then finally, this one here is your media section where you're going to be importing and bringing files in. Now, if you do have some other information or need some information on importing and creating projects, go ahead and check out my other videos here. I talk about the difference between a project, event, and a library, as well as how to import into Final Cut. One thing I do think I forgot to mention here is you do have your titles and transitions that are built into Final Cut in the media window as well. I think I forgot and moved on right from sound effects to the timeline. So that's this final click over here is your titles and transitions that come pre-built. So that's kind of the basic overview of the not Premiere Pro, Final Cut Pro Windows. So again, this is on the default. Things are similar. If we switch to like an organized workspace, we get our media and then our preview, because this does preview these as well. So if you're just going through finding the clips you want, you get all the information on the file, you get your import windows over here, your media, and then a nice big preview window here. Once you figure everything out and get it all organized, you can go ahead and bring up the timeline and begin editing. So it's very, very similar. Color and effects, again, that's just your color effects here, and then a couple of the really good graphs that you would use to do color correction, which again, all of them are live. So again, that was a basic overview of Final Cut Pro's windows in the default, and then a few of the pre-built workspaces. If you have any questions, leave a comment. If you liked this video, give it a like. If you didn't, give it a dislike. Let me know why you didn't like it. Make sure you're subscribed to my channel and click on that bell to get notifications when I upload new videos about all of these products. So thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you learned something, and I hope to see you in my next video. Bye.